Good evening, Westside family. It's a pleasure to be able to talk to you guys for a few nights tonight about something that I've been thinking a lot about lately, and that's about the word silence. So, I was recently reading about a man named Bernie Krause, who is an American musician and soundscape artist for film and television. And he said in 1968, for him to record 1 hour of undisturbed nature without any man made interruptions such as planes or cars, it would take him 15 hours of recording. Now, to get that same 1 hour of undisturbed time in nature today would take over 2,000 hours of recording. That reminds me of one of my favorite stories in the Bible. In 1 Kings 19, where Elijah is hiding in a cave from Jezebel, and he's at the end of his rope and doesn't want to go on, and he's seeking God's counsel. In 1 Kings 19, verses 9 through 13, it says, "And there he came to a cave and lodged in it. And behold, the word of the Lord came to him. And he said to him, 'What are you doing here, Elijah?' And he said, 'I have been very jealous for the Lord of the God of hosts, for the people of Israel have forsaken your covenant, thrown down your altars, and killed your prophets with the sword. And I, even I only, am left, and they seek my life to take it away.' And he said, 'Go out and stand on the mount before the Lord.' And behold, the Lord passed by, and a great and strong wind tore the mountains and broke the pieces in the rocks before the Lord. But the Lord was not in the wind. And after the wind, an earthquake. But the Lord was not in the earthquake. And after the earthquake, a fire. But the Lord was not in the fire. And after the fire, the sound of a low whisper. And when Elijah heard it, he wrapped his face in his cloak and went out and stood at the entrance of the cave. And behold, there came a voice to him and said, 'What are you doing here, Elijah?' Now, some translate the word whisper as silence. So, if you think about it, God didn't appear in the wind, the earthquake, or the fire, but was in the sound of silence. We live in a very noisy time. The EPA reports that 183 million people are regularly exposed to noise levels that are labeled as excessive. Think about all the noisy and distracting things in which we surround ourselves. TVs, music, radio, news, emails, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, podcast. The list goes on and on. And many of these distractions are meant to make us feel connected. But do you ever feel like you and God are disconnected, or that you're distant and you wish that you could hear his voice louder in your life? Is there a connection between the noise in our lives and our inability to hear God? I want to read a couple of passages that talk about silence and the importance of it. In Deuteronomy 27, verse 9, it says, "Then Moses and the Levitical priests said to all of Israel, 'Keep silence and hear, O Israel. This day you have become the people of the Lord your God.'" Psalms 4, verse 4, "Be angry and do not sin. Ponder in your own hearts on your beds and be silent." Habakkuk 2, verse 20, "But the Lord is in his holy temple. Let all the earth keep silence before him." Now we see Jesus here in Matthew 11:28, a passage many of us know very well, where he says, "Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest." If we're not still, and if we don't listen, how exactly is Jesus going to give us rest? Have you spent more time stressing and worrying about your difficult and trying situations than you do in silence talking with God? In Luke chapter 5, verse 16, we learn of two disciplines that we know for a fact Jesus had. It says, "But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed." Those two disciplines that Jesus had were silence and solitude. When's the last time that you prayed in a solitary place? What is it about the silence that is so difficult for us? And why is it easier to surround ourselves with noise and keep moving than it is to stop, be silent, and listen? Is it possible that we're looking for the voice of God in the winds and the earthquakes and the fires, and he is waiting there in the silence? Matthew 6, verse 6, "But when you pray, go into your room and shut the door, and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees you in secret will reward you." I challenge all of us to remove the worthless noise and distractions in our lives and to spend more time imitating Christ in solitude and silence and praying and meditating on God's Word. God is speaking to us through His Word. We just have to stop trying to drown it out sometimes. I appreciate this time that you guys have given me, and I hope that you've been able to learn some things and think about how we all can improve our relationships with Jesus and God. And I pray that we can all take advantage of those moments of silence and solitude in our lives.